Hello and welcome to Kidquake. My name is Christina and I'm a librarian at San Francisco Public Library. If you're like me, you love reading and hearing from the people who write and illustrate the books that we love to read. Well, you're really in for a treat this today because we're going to meet Gloria Amescua. Gloria has been a writer since she was a child, writing poems and stories throughout her life. She loves books that reach a young person's heart, head, and funny bone, and strives to do that in her writing. Gloria is an educator, poet, and children's book writer. Her picture book biography in verse, Child of the Flower Song People, Luz Jimenez, Daughter of the Nawa, illustrated by Duncan Tonatiu, won a Lee and Low New Voices Honor Award. Gloria received both her BA and Master's in Education from the University of Texas at Austin. As a grandmother of two amazing granddaughters, Gloria believes in children, pets, and possibilities. Let's give a warm welcome to Gloria, who's going to join us now and get to share all about her work. Welcome, Gloria.
Hi, thank you so much for that wonderful introduction. I'm so happy to be here. I'm going to talk a little bit about myself, a little bit about Child of the Flower Song People, Luz Jimenez, Daughter of the Nawa, illustrated by Duncan Tonatiu, and also about the process of writing it. So I want to do a little bit with PowerPoint, and so if we could get the first slide up. Here I am at about the same age that you are. And when I was this age, I remember that I had a lot of deep feelings, concerns, thoughts, and we didn't really write too much about those things in school. But this is when I started writing. Next. This is my very first poem. I'm brown not from the sun, but from my birth. I'm like a sunflower growing through a crack in the earth. And I wrote poems throughout the rest of my life and stories, but a lot of poetry. Some of those poems got published, some didn't, but I still wrote them because I wanted to get my feelings and thoughts down on paper. It just meant something to me to do that. So why did I change from writing office poetry to writing picture books? Next. This is why. My granddaughters. Here they are when they are 4 and 6. And I tried writing a picture book for them, and I knew it wasn't very good after I wrote it, though they loved it because it was about them, had photos of them. And what I did then, because not only was I a teacher, I'm also a learner, I decided to learn about writing picture books, and that's what I did. So let's look at the next slide. Child of the Flower Song People is about an indigenous girl in Mexico in the early 1900s who, despite many hardships in her life, shared her love of her traditions, her culture, her language with artists who wanted to show the true face of Mexico, the native people, and also with scholars who wanted to learn Nahuatl, who wanted to capture the stories that she had learned before it all disappeared. So that just kind of gives you an introduction. And next, I want you to see Luz, because she was a real person. This is a biography, and here she is modeling for artists. Next. Here it's Luz with her daughter, Concha, her only child. Next. I want to talk about Aztecs in that term. When we hear the word Aztecs, we usually think of people that lived long ago and who have disappeared. But first of all, I want to tell you that Aztec is not a word that the people gave themselves. They had other names for themselves. Someone else gave them that name. They didn't use it. Nawa or Nahuatl speaking people is what's used now. I use Aztecs in the book, though, because most kids and adults are familiar with that term rather than Nahua. But I just want you to know that they call themselves Nahua. Next. Because she was a model for many different artists, this is just one example for Diego Rivera, La Molinera. Next. I'm going to read a little bit from the book. I'm going to skip some pages and just read a little bit or tell you, because I hope that you get to read the book, the whole book. A girl stared at the stars sprinkling the hammock of sky. Like many other nights, she listened to the whisperings of the ancient Aztecs in the wind. She heard their xochicuicado, their flower song. She listened as the elders repeated tales their grandfathers had told, tales their grandfathers' grandfathers had told, how sacred streams and mountains protect them, how the Nahua lost their land to Cortez the conqueror and to the Spaniards who followed him. She was Luz Jimenez, child of the flower song people, the powerful Aztecs, who called themselves Nahua, who lost their land, but who did not disappear. Next. You can see all the different things Luz learned as she was growing up in these wonderful illustrations by Duncan Donatiu. Next. Evenings by the fire, Luz listened eagerly to stories about how Malitzin, betrayer of the Aztecs, was swept to the top of a mountain where she cries in the wind at night, pulling her long black hair. Next. Luz wove all these old stories into her heart. Next. Luz wanted to learn to read, but there was no public school for her. Then suddenly the government offered free schooling, no, required it to turn the native children into modern ones, like the descendants of the Spanish who ruled the country, who thought only their ways were right and proper. So let's stay on this slide for a minute as I kind of sum up. Luz did suffer many hardships. She dreamed of becoming a teacher. The Mexican Revolution seemed to destroy that dream. As I said, she became a model for artists and shared her culture. She shared the stories and experiences that she had with scholars who wrote them down. And in that way, she became a teacher after all. So next, I want to show you about the beginning of this book. I was inspired by this little pamphlet that I found, and then I just was amazed by her life, and I wanted other people to know about it, and I did lots and lots of research. Next. One of the things I did was to create visuals. And if you're writing a picture book, you have to think of what the images might look like. And so this is one of the things that I did, but I have to tell you that 3 or 4 of these did not make it into the final book, and different events did. Next. Revision is what writing is all about. This is an early draft, and you can see I've written things around on it. And of course, picture books that are for biographies are a little longer than other picture books that are fictional. But I want to tell you that so many things changed. Almost all of the words on this page did not make it into the final book. Only some names and some basic facts, but it changed so much. And you can see its prose here, and it became more poetic. Next. And one of the ways I did that was to write a poem about Luz, and that helped me get the metaphors, the lyrical language that I wanted, and also to get to the heart of the story, what was really important. Next. Here are some tips for you. Write about what you care about, your thoughts, your experiences, things you've heard, stories, what you read, things that you care about. If I hadn't cared about Luz Jimenez, I wouldn't have stayed with it for so many years. No one else can write your stories or poems because you are unique. And revision is the joy of writing. That really is the writing. And then others can help you make your stories better. I certainly had many, many, many people who gave me feedback and who helped me make this story better. And writers were just kids like you, as you saw in that photo of me when I was in 4th grade. I was just a normal kid. And if you write, you are a writer. So now let's see if we have some questions.
Thank you so much, Gloria. That was phenomenal. I know that our viewers are eager to read Child of the Flower Song People and learn all about Luz Jimenez, daughter of the Nahua. To start, I'm just curious, and I bet our audience is curious as well, what was your favorite part of this whole process?
I love the research. I know a lot of people don't like to do that, but I love to read and I love to find out new things. And I learned so much about Nahuatl, the language. I learned about the Mexican Revolution, the time that she was a young child, all the history that went into um, the stories that she told, which were published, and I was able to read those. So that was really wonderful.
Mhm.
Um, I love the revision because it made it every time it would make it better and better and better. And so when I changed it to be more lyrical, which someone suggested I try, I realized that yes, because I'm a poet, so that really worked for me. I don't know why I didn't think of it first.
As you said, many people helped to make this happen. So
Exactly.
that's so great. And I love how you really point out, to write about what you care about and that you cared about learning about and writing about Luz Jimenez. Can you tell us a little bit more about how that started, your care for Luz Jimenez?
Yes, because she and the native people in Mexico were shamed for their language and their dress, their culture, and I felt a immediate connection with her. Indigenous people all over the world, and the United States and everywhere, have almost people have tried to erase them. Governments have tried to erase them in their languages and so on. And it's not the same thing, but when I was growing up, students were punished for speaking Spanish in school. And I was greatly affected by that. Not in the way you might think. I wasn't punished because my parents, even though my father was from Michoacan, Mexico, spoke to us in English.
Mm.
They were trying to do what they thought was best for us. And I realized that, but I felt like I had lost my culture and my language. I had to relearn it as an adult. Well, I took it in school, but I've made many efforts to be able to speak more fluently. I can speak with cousins in Mexico that I wouldn't have been able to otherwise. You know, uh, so I really felt that connection of the shaming. I mean, I felt shame in not knowing Spanish when other people who are Latinx do speak Spanish fluently, and I wish I could do the same. So there's a lot about losing the culture, and
Mhm.
I'm so proud that Luz kept hers and became fluent in Spanish, in Nahuatl, even a little French, and she was learning English. Yeah, she was amazing.
That's phenomenal. Thank you for sharing that personal story. I know that resonates with me as someone who was raised in a similar way as you, and also I'm
Mhm,
sure for our students.
mhm.
I know that when you're writing a picture story, there's the the process of the fact that your words, are then going to become illustrated by, and it's so wonderful that it's been illustrated by Duncan Donatiu. What's your favorite illustration? Do you have a favorite page of the final
I
book?
There are so many, but there is one that just really touches my heart very deeply. It is a page where Luce is teaching college students and teaching the scholars in the image of the students sitting at their desk, and she's speaking, and her words become, they're gray, and then they turn purple, and then those flowers float, and they end up being planted at the feet of the students. Oh my gosh, to bloom again, that just is phenomenal. And I would not have imagined that. And Duncan just did a beautiful job with that. Oh,
I
that
can't
is.
wait to look at it. What a beautiful description, just how you're describing it. I can't wait to see it.
Thank you.
Some people do say that writing a biography, a nonfiction story, doesn't take as much creativity as writing a fictional story. And I would love to hear what you think about that.
Well, I write fictional picture books. I don't have one published yet, but one's maybe going to be. I think that nonfiction and biographies, particularly, it's so difficult because you have to tell the story that's there, and you have to figure out from all this information, tons of information, research, so many things, and be able to carve out a story that captures the very essence of that person's life and tells something that you feel they really would want to be told about their lives. So to me, that takes a lot of creativity. So I mean, they both
Absolutely.
do. They both do.
Yes.
So it's
Yes.
just.
I'm curious if, as a poet, and someone who reclaims Spanish, and I'm sure has reclaimed Nahuatl in some way to be able to write this, do you have a favorite word in Nahuatl?
Well, I guess it would be Xochicuicado because it's flower song. And the reason I chose that word is because when I learned that Nahuatl is very metaphorical, which I did not know that before, very metaphorical, two words to mean one thing. So when I realized that, I knew that it needed to have metaphor in the story itself. So that was amazing to me. And then also just to learning the pronunciation, and I'm not doing it justice most likely, but I've learned a lot about Nahuatl, not that I could speak it or anything. I mean, I learned a few words and that's about it, but that is one of my favorite words. And I was able to, for my book launch, to have Jesus Villanueva Hernandez, Jimenez's son, appear. And he spoke about, because we corresponded from the very beginning. He stayed with me, giving me assistance and resources and so on. And as he said, you can touch a rose or flower, you can touch a flower, you can smell it, but have you ever listened to the song of the flowers? I just thought that was amazing. It was like, oh, yeah. And that word means lyrical poetry, like a song. So yeah,
Oh,
that's
that's
like,
phenomenal. Thank you so much. And thank you for writing a book that includes Nahuatl and also that you make the distinction of what a people were called and what they called themselves.
mhm. They did not actually call someone, I don't know who, there are different stories about that, started calling them Aztecs because of Aztlan, where the people supposedly came from, southern US or northern Mexico. But that was, they used the names of the location they were, or their tribe. Mexica is sometimes used, but that just means the most powerful tribe called themselves that. And word Mexico came from Mexica, but yeah, there are just a lot of things to learn.
Absolutely. Well, when the way that you started your presentation with that beautiful poem of yourself as a 9-year-old, and showing us your picture as a fourth grader. And I'm sure that we have fourth graders that are watching us today. What would you have wanted to say to little Gloria at 9 years old who's sharing that piece of herself in that lovely poem? I mean, any words that you would want to say to her or to directly to our fourth graders who may also be writing poems, on the sides of their notebooks at this age?
Well, I just was inspired by a poem I read, and I thought, wow, this poem says so much in so few words. And
Mm,
that just blew my mind. And then I decided to try to do it myself because I had a lot of feelings about being Mexican American, about what that meant in the time I was living, and
mm,
how that my identity, figuring that out. And so that's what led to that poem. And most of the poetry I think that I wrote was not for school. People weren't having kids write poetry at the time. So for kids, I want you to know that have pride in yourself from the, kind of going between two things here, pride in yourself and your identity, um, pride in the people you come from. And everybody has a culture, not just kids from certain areas. Um, and I want to say to little Gloria, you needed to believe more in what you could do.
mm,
You needed to trust yourself more and believe that you could fulfill your dream, because I
mm,
think I had that dream from the very beginning to be a writer, an author. You can be a writer, but to be a writer means, an author, you have to publish.
mm,
So I guess it was a dream, and I wish I had known that I could achieve it,
mm,
and that kids can achieve their dreams of whatever they want to be.
mm. Thank you. Thank you so much, Gloria. I think those are incredible last words to end on. But I do want to offer you the opportunity. Are there any parting words that you'd like to say before we wrap up?
Well, I think kids, give yourself credit for being all the possibilities of what you can be. You can be whatever you make up your mind to be. That's it.
Thank,
Thanks
thank
so
you.
much.
Thank you. Let's give Gloria a wonderful, let's give her snaps. Let's give her an applause.
Thank
Yes.
you. Thank
Thank
you.
you
So,
so much for being here with
thank you for
us.
having me.
Wow, everyone, that was just so moving and incredible. I know that you're with me when you're feeling with the inspiration that I'm feeling right now. I know you're feeling it too. So before we leave, I just want to remind you that the books that we're exploring here at Kidquake, the book that we just learned about from Gloria Amescua, and poetry. Poetry is available for you at the public library. We have so much wonderful books for you to explore, for you to be inspired by. And each of you at the San Francisco Unified School District has a library card. Yes, just by being a student, you automatically have a public library card. It's called the Scholar Card. And all you have to do is check your email. We've emailed the number to you on September 20th. But if you forget your Scholar Card number, no problem. Just come into any of our library locations. We have 28 throughout the city. Just ask our friendly library staff and we will help you with your card. Make sure that you have that number and know how to access books, movies, audiobooks, and so much more. We want to thank you for joining us today, and we hope to see you at a public library very, very soon. Happy reading, everyone.